All right, so get over here at the bench. Um, I have a lot of stain. I find it on sale and I buy it. Try to have every color they make, pretty much. Um, I like to buy it at Ollie's because it's cheap. Uh, Again, they never seem to look like they are on the can. So this is a piece of it's the outside wood, so it's not going to be quite the same because it's the outer. It's not the hardwood in the middle, but it'll give us an idea. So this traditional cherry is what I'm going to do most of the rest of it with, because when you look at this, it's brown, but it's got a reddish tint to it. And even on the outside here, it's kind of that same color. But down in all these pits, it's darker. So what I'm going to do is put some of the stain on and then wipe it off immediately and then leave it kind of down in the holes. So given the way these look, I'm tempted to do that one, but it really is dark enough that I'm going to go ahead and do that one. That's the espresso. I can't turn this can because I already opened it and stirred it, but just trust me, it's espresso color. So that's supposed to be brown. It almost looks black, but even black is okay. So, yeah, this should be pretty easy. I will, rather than moving the camera, I'll move all this over. Yeah. So this bench, I don't really care what gets on it. So now I'm putting this on very liberally so it gets down in the holes. And even this part, I'm gonna go ahead and cover, because I'm gonna paint that white with latex paint later on, and it should cover it up pretty well. And even if it bleeds through a little, that's okay. So I think all this should be fine, because there's even these deep spots down here. So, and then up here I want to be a little more careful. I don't want to get it on these middle parts, because this is going to make these spots darker. Now, if they're too dark, I can sand it off, but I'd rather not have to do that. So I'm going to try, and yeah, I'm getting this stuff everywhere. That's okay. I'm going to try, as long as I get it in the holes, or the pits. So I shouldn't change their name. I'll be happy. And I gotta make sure I don't have got on my gloves now, so I gotta be careful what I touch. So same with this one. And I don't want to leave this long. But what I found on the last one is you really didn't have to be super careful. Just end up kind of blending it. And again, anywhere that just ends up way too dark, you can sand to get rid of it. Now, full disclosure, this is not how I did it last time. Last time I painted the whole thing red with the red stain, and tried to come back afterward and do this, and it took many coats, because that first coat of stain is usually what sticks. So I may end up regretting this, because this may make these parts too dark. But what I did last time was not, I didn't want to repeat that. It didn't work too well. Again, I've got this on my gloves, so I'm trying not to get it all over the middle part of the wand here. Okay, looks like it's pretty well covered. So now I want to wipe as much of that off as I can without spreading it to the rest of the wand now also. Put my gloves off so I don't spread it everywhere. Oh, I missed a couple spots, didn't I? See that? And just for uniformity's sake, I'll do the whole bottom. A couple of these I gotta get down in. Guess I could have dumped the whole thing in the can. So again, the goal here is to get down into the pits. Not, like, you do want to darken these spots, but I don't want to over darken them. So other than finding spots that I got to touch up, I'm gonna rub as much of this off as I can. So you see that brown color coming back out. It's not as black as it was when I applied it. Now, I'm getting it everywhere, which is not my intention. So I may end up having to come back with sandpaper, which I don't want to do because then I'll have to hit that with a pocket knife again. But, as I've said multiple times, this is supposed to look worn. So this may actually contribute to that. Okay, that looks all right. So let's compare the color. So it's a little darker. It doesn't have the reddish color, but I like the inside the pits looks right to me. So let's go ahead and hit it with some, there's a scrap piece of 400 grit. It's already half worn out, so just lightly. I'll probably wait till this dries and not mess up my sandpaper as much, but I'm impatient. The goal here is just to leave kind of a lighter spot for that red stain that I'm going to put on there next to take hold. And honestly, I could probably go ahead and do it. That way it blends a little better with black. Well, the espresso is not black. Yeah, I always feel like that's even until I start sanding it, and then it has corners. When you feel it, it feels pretty much even. The sandpaper doesn't lie. So on the last one I made, I ended up doing this multiple times, just kind of trying to get it right. Like even down here, you know, I don't know how well it's going to blend. But I mean, you look at the picture and there's kind of, it's darker toward the little, I don't know what do you call that, where all the little branches were supposed to come out of. I could have done a better job with the holes right there, let's be honest. Okay, double that off with the air compressor. Yeah, let's go ahead and do the red, because I don't see any reason not to. But you don't need to watch that, so hold on. Okay, so open up the red, I stirred it up. So this is, like I say, it's called traditional cherry, but if you see, you can see that, right? Yeah, it's very reddish looking. And you know, you look at this picture and you don't see a lot of red, but if it's too red or if it's too light, I can darken it up. Whereas anything that's already too dark is going to be a little troublesome. So, but again, I can cover everything because I still want that reddish brown tint, even on the dark spots. Even down in the pits is okay, although it's not crucial, so I don't really need to go to too much effort, although I'll have to take a look and see if I'm lying. I may decide it's necessary. Get a good coat on there. Probably folded this the wrong way. It's getting everywhere. It really doesn't matter how thick you put it on because you're just going to wipe it back off. Although it does get messier. Obviously my gloves look like I've been preparing filet mignon or something for the grill. You can see up here once you put the stain on, the flat spots where we hit it with the pocket knife really start to stand out. And that's why you don't really have to dig deep. You don't have to cut very deep. You just need that flat edge, and then the stain will make it stand out. So yeah, what I was concerned with is these dark spots kind of being uneven, but the stain just kind of takes care of that. I mean, I guess, I don't know if one redissolves the other, if it just kind of hides it, but you know, when I didn't have the red on there, it really looked blatant, and now, and it wasn't a very even edge either, but now it looks fine. And in fact, this one almost doesn't look dark enough. So it's a problem that kind of takes care of itself. Now, the latex paint I have is white, and I end up kind of wanting it to look more dingy. So in that picture, it's almost an almond or something. What I did last time is I covered it with a layer of stain. So this is probably not the last stain that'll get on this. Any future coat of stain is not going to soak in very much. So you know, I can sit and let this dry a little bit, but honestly, with it down in all these holes and everything, I'd almost rather go ahead and take the excess off and then just hit it with another coat next time, because you know, it says you can leave it for 10 minutes or whatever, and that's usually what I'll do when I'm staining something else, because I know I'm gonna end up rubbing a lot of this off, but I want it to have that hand rub look. So the more I manipulate it, I may even go back with another color, just to kind of add some depth. But yeah, so it's getting a lot closer. If you compare these, you can kind of see their color. I think I was trying to show that before and you couldn't see it because I was holding it the wrong place. But so it's getting close. You can see, you know, these edges here. Now, there's darker spots there. And where I sanded these off, they're a little too light now. So, but another coat of red will probably fix that. I may even go back in, this one right here, give me kind of a more of a brown. Honestly, let me see, I've still got some on this rag. If I hit some of the espresso in here, after, I know what happened if I hit it before the red, but if I hit it after the red, does some of it soak in? Does it take their... Yeah, it's kind of uneven. And it looks like it kind of took the place of the red a little bit. I'll go ahead and do it everywhere. Okay, yeah, I like that. It gave me some of the darker marks. Let's top that off with red again, just to make sure the color isn't too brown. Okay. So this is where I'm gonna let it dry for now. I'll leave it for at least a day. No, me, it'll be a week, but I'll come back to it. It'll get at least another coat or 2 or 3. Oh, wrong one. I'm sure that sounded great on the video. So these spots here are, I sanded them. I almost regret doing that because they're actually not quite dark enough anymore. So let me hit those again. Like, I know I want to take on that red color on the outside. And the main thing I was concerned with is pits, and they're doing well. Yeah, I think I need to let this soak in, and then I can kind of go from there as to how to get this more. But yeah, you can see it come along. It has no shine to it at the moment. That'll be the last step. I'll do some oil. But I definitely want at least 1, if not 5, more coats of stain. Now, stain doesn't really soak in much after the first coat, so it's not that it's gonna do anything major, but it basically I'm fine-tune the color that way. So sand off what I have and add more or whatever. So anyway, until next time, I probably put these gloves somewhere. Can't turn my phone off until I have clean hands because I don't want to get this stain on my phone. So now I can turn it off. All right. Review. So this is what it looks like right now. Nice and dry. There's no shine or sheen to it. It's lighter all around, even where I sanded these, it didn't soak in as well. Whether or not I should have done that, I'm really not sure. Maybe I shouldn't have. Too late now. But yeah, so maybe another coat, just kind of darken everything proportionally. You can see inside the pits did exactly what I wanted. They all got nice and dark for the most part. Some of these didn't, but for the most part. Now the question is this whole thing, does this need to get darker than this? So we'll just do a whole, I'm really curious what that provincial is going to do. So I'm going to give it a whole coat of that. And see what happens. So, yeah, I don't think you're in frame, are you? So I'll move it over. And yes, I end up dripping stain all over my workbench, and I don't really care. That's what a workbench is for, is to be used and that kind of thing. So again, I don't remember at what step, certainly before the oil, we're gonna have to paint this down here. I don't remember at what point I did that on the last time I made these wands. So last time I made 2 wands and neither of them broke. So I must have used a stronger piece of wood last time. Both blanks came from the same branch. Now granted, it was the same tree, but it was almost a year ago, so maybe this has been sitting outside too long. I'm not sure. So that's not as dark. It's not darkening. So as much as I like the provincial on here, this has already got 1 coat of stain. It's not going to soak in much. And since it's not soaking in much, it's not darkening. So I'm going to have to go back to the espresso, I believe. I certainly don't have any use for these other 3. So the espresso and the cherry, though, I probably will end up using. So let's make a nice boring video where I spend half of it stirring paint. Nobody likes watching paint dry. Oh, no, watching paint dry. I'm trying to phrase that in a clever way, but nobody likes watching paint dry is just kind of true. So, now this is interesting, and it just kind of goes to show you why I never trust the color stain, because this is almost black where it dried on the stirring stick, and yet it's not on our wood. And now those are all dirty. I don't really want to mix something in. So, we use the end of the wand. A nice color sample that way, I guess. Although only if I wipe it off. Which I suppose I can. I've got an old sock sitting over here. All right. So if I was happier with the color, I would let that dry for 10 minutes. But since I'm not, I'm going to go ahead and... it's not that I regret putting it on there. Every little layer will add a little bit of color, especially if they get down in these pits and don't wipe off quite as much since I can't get to them. But I do want to... well, I want to do a little bit of red and a little bit of the espresso. So let's do the espresso first again. I guess I should have cut a new cloth. So I'll just... well, I'll use the espresso one again because I just need the edge on it. I don't know if you could hear beeping. I'm down in my shop, but I've got a garage next door. And the garage door is set to close at a certain time each night. That way, if I forget and leave it up, it will close on its own. So I highly recommend the MyQ system. So ours is built into the garage door opener, but I'm quite happy with it. If I do forget to put it down, oh well, just about every time I put it up. You know, if this is so boring, I'll probably speed it up. But if I decided not to, then you can count yourself lucky. You get to watch this all again. Even after I did this yesterday. Oh, I was wrong. It didn't take me a week to get back to this. It was just yesterday. And in all honesty, the stain can take a couple of days to dry, so it may not have been fully cured. But it doesn't hurt anything. So interestingly, yesterday, I wiped this off very quickly because I was worried it would stain too deeply, because obviously that is too dark. I don't want it to stay that way. But instead, more of it wiped off than I expected. Now, granted, I guess I did take sandpaper to it, didn't I? So maybe I should officially call that a regret, and it's a step you should skip if you decide to do this. Because I think it was probably fine with just the rag. Although, if you look at a picture, the outside here really is about the same color as those, the upper spot. It's supposed to really be just this pits that give it the color that it takes on. But when you're looking at it, if the bottom is too light, it just doesn't look right. And I wasn't seeing very much color contrast between the pitted parts and the straight parts. So this is one way to fix that. And especially after yesterday's experiment, we know that if it gets too dark, all I gotta do is sand it. Now comes the fun part where I try not to get stain on the rest of it, even though it's all over my gloves. Yeah. So I feel like this would be a good time to tell a joke, but I can't think of one. So just take this moment, remember your favorite joke, tell it to yourself, laugh, and by the time you're done, maybe I'll be finished with this. Okay, so I somehow managed to avoid getting this everywhere, which is a good thing. Yeah, I got a bunch of these clothes. I'll do this off camera. All right, so just like last time, I don't really need this to soak in a lot. But yeah, see, when you wipe it off, it's almost non-existent. So let's compare. It really is just the pits, isn't it? It's not that the whole, I mean, that's not true. It's a little bit darker. So maybe I'll let this soak in for just a minute. I reapply to this down here. I'll turn the camera off, which I'm sure you wish I had done long before now, while I wait for this to dry. So, if I can find a clean spot on my hand, okay. Okay, it's been maybe 5 minutes, long enough for me to put some junk away. I doubt it's made a huge difference, but I also don't. If it's not dark enough, it's easier to just do it again. This also gets down in the pits again and gives them another layer. So a lot of these stains recommend multiple coats anyway. And again, this portion we're going to paint white, so I don't really care what it looks like. These, however, I want to be careful not to have them run too much. Although, they're almost scraping too clean. All right, then. Okay, so there's some shine down in those pits, so you can kind of, I can tell that I can't get it all out of those, and I don't really even need to. But what I will do, what I probably ought to do is wait another day, let it dry, and then put red on it. But I don't think it's going to hurt anything to do it now, and I'm impatient. So I already opened it, I already stirred it. Let's give it a good coating. So I'm just going to go head to toe on it because I don't mean to drip it everywhere though. I don't mind the two colors melding. In fact, I think it's necessary because the in between the pits is not just dark. It's got the same reddish tint that the rest of the wand has. All right, now I got to get right there where I'm holding it, but I got to figure out how to do that. Made a mess over here. All right, looks like I missed a spot or two. Actually, yeah, I'll hold it by where I'm going to paint it because that one doesn't matter as much. You don't want to be too out there because the paint is not, it's like whatever's underneath is going to show through a little bit. But now I got to make sure I get everything. There's some dry spots on here that I seem to have missed. Even down in these guys. So again, I made this part just a little too small. But when you're freehanding, honestly, with the camera in the way, it made it a little harder to, like, normally I probably actually would have measured it more. But every time I measured it, it ended up being kind of a big ordeal. So it is what it is. It's a model. It's not like we're using this on a movie set. So this one I'm gonna let dry for a little bit longer. Because the color is pretty close. I mean, it's redder right now because it's wet, but I think when it dries, it's gonna be pretty close to what we want. So I really want it to soak in pretty well. So I'll give that 10 or 15 minutes and then revisit. And you don't want to let stain dry completely on, like even down in the pits, I have to be careful. It never really, if you leave it too thick, it never really dries, it gets sticky. So you don't want to do that, but the longer you leave it. So let's see what the can says. And I know you can't see it, but it says preparación quite calcular alacado existente con panal de lipa or, oh wait, no, wrong one. That sounded awful too. I used to be able to read Spanish okay, even though I didn't know what I was saying. I took 3 years of it in school, but never really was any good at it. Okay. This says almost nothing. Oh, stain application. Allow to penetrate for 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. So maybe I don't need to give it 20. So other brands, Minwax, I believe, will say 15. This one has more solids in it, which is why it brags about the 3 times faster. So maybe they really don't want it to dry too much, or all those solids will just sit on the surface. I just had a lot of S's, and I've got my Invisalign in, so I sound like a snake, like Sally sells shells on the seashore. I put a new tray in today too. My tooth is, oh man, it's hurting. So these are not fun. I never had braces as a kid either. This is just for, I had a sensitivity issue. I don't even care what my teeth look like at this point, but they were hurting. So I have to apparently need to hurt them more to fix them. So that's been nothing but a bag of laughs right there. All right, so in the end, I'm not sure how much this will look than when we started. And because it really didn't absorb much. Well, actually it did. Up here, the red soaked in better, which is what I wanted. Let's compare. So we'll do a layer of oil, which will give it a little bit of a gleam. Color-wise, oh wow, actually that matches really well. You see that? Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. All right, so it may get another coat of red if I end up going over the paint. That's what I did last time because the paint was just really white. This ends up being yellow. Mine ends up being more of a reddish color, but unless I can find some almond paint, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I'll let that dry tonight, and or who knows, maybe for 3 weeks. But I'll come back to that. And the next thing we'll do is that paint, which that won't take but a second, but then we got to, once the paint dries, I've got to draw on the pattern. Now, I found a website where somebody recreated that pattern. And so I printed it out last time I did this. I got to find that website again or find the printout, one or the other, and then kind of figure it out from there. The top goes all the way around, so you have to basically freehand it because it's got to subdivide cleanly, and obviously I didn't measure the diameter of this thing. But anyway, that's for next time. So hope you enjoyed watching paint dry. I'm sure this was riveting. Until next time.